Between the chill of dawn and the silence of nightfall, life for a medieval serf was a cycle of labor, hunger, and hope. Imagine waking up not to an alarm, but to the sound of a rooster and the weight of obligation, because you didn't own the land you worked. The Lord did. Every handful of grain, every breath of rest came with a price. Yet somehow, through mud, cold, and endless toil, they found ways to laugh, love, and endure a world that offered them almost nothing. If you drift off to stories like these, a like or subscribe would be amazing. And tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I swear, it never gets old. Seeing people from Ireland to Indonesia sharing the same moment across centuries. All right, tonight we're going back to medieval England, to a time when your fate was bound to the soil beneath your feet. So find your most comfortable spot, let the noise of the day fade away, and settle in, because this is what it was really like to be a serf.
Your eyes crack open to darkness and the unmistakable smell of smoke, earth and animal dung. The roof above you is barely visible, just the underside of thatch, where tiny creatures occasionally rustle and scurry. You're not alone in here, not even close. A chicken struts across your feet. Your family's precious pig grunts from its corner. The goat, your literal roommate, chews thoughtfully near your head. You're all sharing this single room home made of dubyell and daub. Basically mud slapped over a woven wooden frame. And let me tell you, on this freezing morning, you're not exactly mad about having warm bodies around. Get up, your father grunts. Sun's almost here. You stir from your straw pallet on the hard-packed dirt floor. Unlike your memory foam mattress right now, there's nothing soft about where you've been sleeping. Just a thin layer of straw that's been compressed by your body for months. You haven't changed it because, well, where would you get fresh straw in winter? The cold hits immediately. You're wearing the same wool tunic you wore yesterday and the day before. Actually, you've been wearing it since October. It's now February. No, you haven't washed it. Are you insane? It's freezing outside. Plus, washing clothes is a whole production involving lye that would destroy the natural oils that make the wool somewhat water resistant. Besides, everyone smells exactly like you do. A mixture of wood smoke, sweat, and that distinct human funk that comes from living without modern hygiene. I'm up, you mutter. Though no one really cares about your complaints. Your mother is already awake, coaxing last night's embers back to life. This is perhaps the most important task of the morning. Without fire, you have no warmth, no cooked food, and honestly little reason to live through a medieval February. Here, she says, handing you a chunk of dark bread. Eat. Hold up. Let me paint you a picture of this bread. This isn't your fluffy sourdough from Whole Foods. This is a dense, hard lump made from barley and rye, whatever grains survived the winter. It's coarse because it's been ground by hand, which means tiny bits of stone from the grinding process are mixed in. Free dental work, by which I mean it slowly wears your teeth down to nubs. The bread is your breakfast. That's it. Maybe there's some hard cheese if your family's doing well. Maybe there's nothing but the bread. If you're not, you're lucky it's not famine season. During those times, this chunk might be divided between 3 people. You eat quickly because there's no time to waste. You can already hear the manor steward outside calling for workers. As a serf, you're legally bound to this land. You're not a slave. Technically, you can't be bought and sold as a person. but you're the next closest thing. You're sold with the land. You cannot leave. Your children will inherit your status. This is your life. Boots, your father says, pointing to the single pair of leather shoes the family shares for outside work. It must be your day to wear them. Your mother and sister will stay behind today, continuing the endless indoor work, carding wool, spinning, weaving, cooking, preserving, and maintaining this glorious mud hut you call home. Outside, the February morning is cruel. A thin, icy rain falls, the kind that somehow feels colder than snow. The village is a collection of huts similar to yours, smoke rising from holes in their roofs, all clustered together and surrounded by the vast open fields where you'll spend your day. The smell hits you the moment you step outside. Medieval villages don't have sewage systems. There's a midden heap, basically the community trash and toilet area, not far from the houses. In summer, the stench is ungodly. Winter brings the small mercy of freezing some of the odour. You're late, the steward says, a man you neither like nor can afford to offend. He works for the lord who owns this manor, the land, the village, and effectively you. Sorry, you mutter, joining the line of other serfs. Everyone looks as tired and dirty as you feel. Today's task: clearing drainage ditches in the Lord's fields. This means standing ankle deep in freezing water, digging through mud with wooden tools for hours. The work is mind-numbingly dull and physically exhausting. Your back will scream by midday. Your hands will bleed. Wait, I should explain something. In your head you're probably thinking, I'd just run away. How would they even catch me? Right? I know, I've thought it too. But here's the thing. Where would you go? The next village over, they'd return you immediately. The forest, you'd die within days. Cities, they're tiny at this point, and you'd be an obvious outsider with no skills for urban life. Also, it's illegal to help runaway serfs. The punishment is severe. By mid-em morning, your body is numb from the cold. Your stomach is already growling because that single piece of bread wasn't nearly enough calories for the work you're doing. But hunger is your constant companion, especially in the hungry gap. Late winter and early spring when stored food runs low before new crops grow. William's youngest died last night, whispers the man working beside you. His name is Edwin, and he's maybe 40, which makes him practically ancient in your world. His face is weathered, missing several teeth, and his hands are gin-old from decades of this same labour. Fever, you ask, though it could be any number of things. A third child they've lost. You nod. Child mortality is so common that parents often don't name babies until they've survived their first year. About 1 in 3 won't make it to age 5. It's just the way of things. The conversation switches to more pressing matters. Heard the Lord's adding another workday to our service, Edwin mutters, glancing around to make sure the steward isn't listening. As a serf, you owe your lord a set number of days working his land called the domain without pay. It's part of the deal for being protected and allowed to work a small strip of land for yourself. If the lord increases the required days, it means less time to grow food for your own family. Your stomach tightens with worry. Last year was already hard. Your family barely produced enough to feed themselves and pay the various taxes and tithes. The Lord gets a share. The church gets a share. The miller takes a portion to grind your grain. At every turn, someone is taking from what little you have. Around noon, there's a brief break. You sit on the damp ground, pulling out another small piece of bread. This is your lunch. No midday feast, no break room, no coffee run, just more bread. Slightly more stale than breakfast. "You know what, I heard," says a younger man named Watt joining your small group up north in York. "They say a man danced until he dropped dead, then 5 more started dancing, couldn't stop themselves. You've heard of this, the dancing plague. Nobody knows exactly what causes it, but most believe it's either demonic possession or divine punishment. Actually, it's probably ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on rye in damp conditions. When consumed, it causes hallucinations, convulsions, and what looks like uncontrollable dancing. People can dance themselves to death from exhaustion. God preserve us," Edwin mutters, making the sign of the cross. The thought of tainted grain adds another worry. Your family's stored rye needs to last until the new harvest. If it's contaminated, you might not know until the symptoms start. The Lord's steward is coming back around, ending your brief rest period. Back to work. Your hands are cracked and bleeding from the cold and wet. No gloves, of course. Those are a luxury. You wear rough wool clothing year-round. In summer it's hot and itchy. In winter, if it gets wet, which it is now, it stays wet. Wet wool in freezing temperatures is its own special kind of torture. The day stretches endlessly. The sky is grey. The work is grey. Your future is grey. There's no prospect of advancement, no medieval equivalent of a promotion or career change. You were born a serf. You'll die a serf. Your children will be serfs. This field, this village, this life, it's all you'll ever know. Unless, of course, something worse happens. And speak of the devil. A horn sounds from the direction of the village. Everyone stops. That's not a normal sound. Horns mean trouble. "Raiders?" someone whispers. The steward looks concerned for once. "Back to the village," he orders. You feel a spike of fear. Raiders are rare this far inland, but not impossible. Vikings may have mostly settled down by now, but there are always threats. Outlaws, soldiers from conflicts between nobles, or even just hungry men from other struggling villages. As your group hurries back, you spot smoke. Not the normal cooking fire smoke, but larger, darker plumes. Something is burning in the village. Your throat tightens. Your mother and sister are there. Your home, your few possessions, your stored food, everything that stands between you and starvation. The men around you pick up pace, some breaking into runs despite their exhaustion. You do the same, heart pounding, legs burning with effort after the long morning of labour. The smoke gets thicker as you approach when you crest the small hill overlooking your village. The scene stops you cold. 3 buildings are fully engulfed in flames. People are running, screaming. There are mounted men, at least a dozen, wearing the colours of a neighbouring lord. Not raiders, Edwin says grimly beside you. Worse, lords' conflict. You're caught in the middle of a dispute between nobles. Your lord has apparently angered another who's decided to punish him by destroying his property. That property includes your village, your home, and you. One of the mounted men spots your group returning from the fields. He points, shouts something to his companions. 3 riders break off, heading in your direction. The steward who moments ago was ordering you around looks as terrified as you feel. "Run!" he shouts, and just like that, you're all running. Not toward the village now, but away toward the forest edge. You've never moved so fast in your life. Adrenaline overriding the fatigue in your muscles. Behind you, hoof beat-outs grow louder. You reach the tree line just as an arrow thunks into a trunk beside you. The forest is technically the Lord's property too. his private hunting ground where serfs are forbidden. Right now, no one cares about that law. The dense undergrowth slows the horses. You keep running, branches whipping your face, thorns tearing at your clothes. You can hear others crashing through the brush around you, but you've lost sight of everyone except Edwin, who somehow keeps pace despite his age. This way, he hisses, veering left. You follow without question. The sounds of pursuit fade slightly. Edwin leads you to a small stream, then into it. Walk in the water, he instructs, hides our trail. The icy water is agony on your already cold, wet feet, but you obey. Survival trumps comfort. You wade downstream for what feels like an eternity before Edwin finally signals to exit on the opposite bank. There, concealed in a dense thicket, you find others from your village, including, to your immense relief, your mother and sister. Your mother's face is streaked with soot, and your sister is quietly sobbing, but they're alive. Our home, you ask, already knowing the answer from their faces. Your mother shakes her head. Gone. Everything. Reality sinks in. You've lost what little you had. Your stored food, your few tools, the roof over your head. Winter isn't over. Without shelter and food, survival becomes questionable. Your father isn't among the group. No one's seen him. The waiting is unbearable as more villagers trickle into this makeshift forest refuge. Night begins to fall, bringing even colder temperatures. Without fire, too risky with the raiders possibly still searching. The cold becomes dangerous. People huddle together for warmth, sharing the few cloaks and blankets some manage to grab. Children whimper from hunger and fear. You curl up between your mother and sister, sharing body heat, wondering what happens next. The sound of someone approaching sends a jolt of fear through the group. Everyone freezes, then a whispered voice. It's Oswald and John. We're bringing more. More villagers emerge from the darkness, including at last your father. His face is bloody, but he's moving under his own power. Your family embraces in silent relief. As you cling to each other in the freezing dark, you realize this is just the beginning of your hardships. Even if the raiders leave, you'll return to burned homes, possibly destroyed food stores, and fields that still need tending despite your personal catastrophe. The Lord will not reduce your obligations because of this attack, and yet somehow people survive. They rebuild, they endure. Medieval peasants were nothing if not resilient. They had to be. As the night deepens and your family presses together for warmth, you listen to the elders already making plans for rebuilding, for finding food, for survival. This isn't the first disaster they've weathered. It likely won't be the last. The cold seeps into your bones. Hunger gnaws at your stomach, and fear of what tomorrow brings keeps your mind racing despite your exhaustion. This is just one day in the life of a medieval serf. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new hardships, and somehow you'll find the strength to face them. Because that's what your ancestors did. They survived against all odds in conditions that would break most modern humans within days. Their blood runs in your veins. Their strength is your inheritance. In the darkness of the forest, facing an uncertain future, you close your eyes. Survival means taking rest when you can get it. Even on the cold, hard ground, huddled against your family for warmth. Dawn breaks through the trees, pale light filtering down to where you and the other villagers have spent the most miserable night of your lives. Your body aches from the cold ground. Your stomach feels hollow. The clothes you've been wearing for months are now not just dirty but torn from your escape through the forest. "They gone?" someone whispers. Nobody knows for sure. Your father volunteers to scout along with 3 other men. The waiting is torture. Children whimper from hunger and the adults have nothing to give them. The cold has seeped so deep into your bones that you wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. Edwin, the older man who helped you escape yesterday, sits nearby, his face grim. Had this happened once before? He says quietly. 15 years back, different lords quarrel. What did you do? You ask. He gives a bitter laugh. What could we do? Rebuilt, replanted, starved a bit. Life goes on until it doesn't. That's when you notice his hands gnarled, scarred with 2 fingers missing from his left. Frostbite, he explains, following your gaze. Bad winter after that raid. No proper shelter for months. Well, that's a cheerful thought. After what feels like forever, the scouts return. They've moved on, your father reports, though his relieved expression quickly fades. Villages. It's bad. The walk back is silent, everyone preparing themselves for what's coming. When you crest the hill overlooking your home, the scene is worse than you imagined. Half the village is simply gone, replaced by smoking ruins. The other half stands damaged, but not completely destroyed. Your family home is among the total losses. Nothing remains but a blackened outline on the ground and a few charred timbers. The livestock, your precious pig, the chickens, the goat, all gone, either stolen or burned alive. Jesus, someone mutters behind you. An appropriate prayer given the circumstances. The village church, a modest wooden structure, somehow survived mostly intact. The priest, Father Eldred Red, stands in the doorway, his robes filthy. He looks as shell-shocked as everyone else. The Lord tests us, he begins, as villagers gather. His voice wavers. Even he doesn't seem convinced by his own words. Reality sinks in quickly. This isn't just about losing your homes. Your food stores are gone. The seeds saved for spring, planting gone. Tools, clothing, everything needed for survival gone. And it's still February, the hunger month in normal years. This is about as far from normal as it gets. The steward arrives from the manor house, the Lord's residence situated about a mile away on higher ground. Of course, it wasn't touched by the raid. The Lord offers his condolences, the steward announces, looking uncomfortable. A murmur runs through the crowd. Condolences don't rebuild houses or fill empty bellies. He requires workers at the manor tomorrow. The steward continues. Regular duties must continue. This statement is met with stunned silence. Your homes are destroyed and the Lord expects work to continue as normal. Edwin steps forward, his weathered face creased with barely controlled anger. We've lost everything. Our families need shelter, food. The steward shifts his weight. Clearly the messenger who doesn't want to be killed for his message. The Lord says those who work will receive a meal and permission to use timber from the edge of his forest for rebuilding. Not freely given timber, mind you, just permission to cut it yourself after a full day's work. How generous. Your father joins Edwin. Ask him for grain from his stores, just enough to keep us alive until I will convey your request. The steward cuts him off. Those who wish to eat tomorrow will report for work at dawn. With that, he turns and leaves. The reality of feudalism hits you right in the face. The Lord is obligated to provide protection, yes, but he clearly failed at that. Still, you remain obligated to him. The relationship only works in one direction when it really matters. All right, your father says, turning to your mother and sister. We need shelter first. The next hours are a blur of desperate activity. With your home destroyed, your family joins forces with your cousins, whose house was damaged but still has half a wall standing. Together you scavenge through the ruins for anything usable. A bent cooking pot, a partially burned wooden bowl, a handful of nails that can be straightened and reused. You've never truly appreciated how little you owned until you're picking through its ashes. The immediate goal: create some kind of shelter before nightfall, without tools, without materials, with only bare hands and desperation. Her uncle had been a woodworker, not a formal profession, just a skill he'd developed. He directs the efforts to salvage timber from the ruins and forest edge. "Don't touch that yet," he warns, as a young man tries to move a charred beam still hot underneath. "You'll burn yourself. The smell is overwhelming. Burnt wood, burnt thatch, and worse scents you try to ignore. Was that a person's home or their grave? In some cases, it's both. By midday, your stomach is screaming with hunger. The physical labour of digging through ruins and dragging salvaged materials makes it worse. Your mother has been searching for anything edible in the forest edge and returns with a small handful of winter nuts and some kind of roots. Not much," she says, apologetically, dividing the pitiful findings among your family. "The nuts are hard and bitter. The roots taste like dirt, but might have some nutritional value. It does almost nothing to ease the hunger. Some of the men are going to try fishing," your father says. The nearby stream might yield something, though winter fishing is rarely productive. The makeshift shelter takes shape slowly. A lopsided lean-to constructed of salvaged timbers and branches, covered with whatever will keep out the elements. Scraps of undamaged thatch, tree boughs, even dirt packed over sticks. It's more like an animal den than a human dwelling, but it will provide minimal protection from wind and rain. As you work, you notice blood on your hands from where blisters have formed and broken. There's no time to care about that. Pain is just another constant companion like hunger. By late afternoon, more villagers straggle back from the forest where they'd hidden. Some bring meagre foraged foods. One managed to snare a rabbit, a prize that causes actual cheering. It's a pitiful amount for so many, but something. "What now?" your sister asks as your family huddles in the half-finished shelter. The day's light fading. She's 14, old enough to understand the direst of your situation, young enough to still look to adults for answers they don't have. Your father stares at his bloody hands. "Tomorrow we work. We eat the Lord's food. We start rebuilding. And if there's not enough food," she persists. Your mother shoots her a warning look. Some fears are better left unspoken. That night is another exercise in misery. The Lento keeps off the worst of the wind but does little for warmth. Your family sleeps huddled together on the bare ground, covered with the single blanket someone salvaged. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, interrupted by cold discomfort and the sounds of others suffering around you. Morning arrives with frost coating the ground. You can see your breath inside the shelter. Everything hurts from sleeping on the hard earth, and your empty stomach has given up growling and settled into a dull, persistent ache. Still, at dawn, most able-bodied villagers report for work at the manor as ordered. The promise of food is too powerful to ignore. Your father goes, you go too, deemed old enough for a full day's labour. The manor house sits on a rise overlooking the village and surrounding fields. It's a timber structure far larger and sturdier than the peasant homes below. Smoke rises from multiple hearths inside. The smell of cooking food reaches you even at the gate. making your mouth water painfully. The steward divides workers into groups. Some will repair a section of the Lord's fence that's rotting. Others will clear drainage ditches. Your task from yesterday apparently still a priority despite your village being in ashes. A third group will help in the manor's brewery where ale is being prepared. You're assigned to the drainage crew again. Another day of standing in freezing water. At least the promised meal keeps hope alive. The work is even harder today. Weakened as you are by hunger and poor sleep, your muscles scream with each shovel full of mud. The man working next to you isn't Edwin, but a younger villager named Watt. Heard anything from the other side of the village? You ask him during a brief pause. His family lived on the far end. Watt shakes his head grimly. My cousin's baby died in the night. Cold, probably just another casualty that won't make any history books. Medieval life continues, brutal in its indifference. Midday brings the promised meal. A bowl of pottage, a thick soup, and a chunk of bread for each worker. It's basic fare, but after nearly 2 days without real food, it tastes miraculous. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, knowing it needs to fuel hours more labour. The conversation among the workers is subdued, focused on immediate concerns. Who has extra space in their shelter? Who might have tools to share? Who needs help digging out their stored root vegetables if they weren't destroyed? Church roof needs repair, someone mentions. Father says we should make that a priority. A few men snort at this. God's house can wait when human dwellings are gone, but the church is also the village's communal building, its storeroom, its heart. There's practical value beyond the religious aspect. Thomas's boy has the cough, another man says quietly. Everyone grows silent at this. The cough could mean many things, none good. In winter, respiratory illnesses spread quickly and can be deadly, especially to the young and old. My grandmother knows a remedy, offers a young man. Boiled wound and honey. Where's honey coming from? Someone scoffs. Raiders took everything. Wild hives, the young man insists. I know where to find them. In February, with snow still on the ground, good luck, lad. The conversation illustrates a harsh reality. Medical care in your time consists primarily of herbal remedies of questionable effectiveness, most unavailable in winter anyway. Prayer is the other option. Neither seems particularly reliable. After the meal, it's back to work until sunset. By the time you're released to return to the village, your body feels twice its age. Every muscle aches, your hands are torn and bleeding, but your stomach is no longer completely empty, and you have permission to cut timber tomorrow after work. Plus, you've managed to secrete away a small portion of your bread tucked inside your tunic to bring back to your mother and sister. Many others have done the same. The Lord's generosity redistributed through sleight of hand. The village looks different when you return. Signs of progress amid the devastation. Some makeshift shelters have improved. A communal cooking fire burns in what was once the village centre. People have organised themselves as they always do in crisis. You find your mother helping tend that fire, your sister gathering water from the stream. The small piece of bread you smuggled out is accepted with tears of gratitude and divided carefully. That night, more villagers crowd into your family's makeshift shelter. Body heat becomes precious. Personal space becomes irrelevant. You sleep sandwiched between your sister and a neighbour's teenage son while your parents share the space with the neighbour couple. Like old Simeon's inn, jokes the neighbour man, referring to the biblical story of no room at the inn except where all the animals. The weak laughter this earns feels like a victory. Humour, however dark, means spirits aren't completely broken. Sleep comes easier tonight despite the crowding. Exhaustion trumps discomfort. Tomorrow will bring more of the same. Work, scavenging, rebuilding. The day after that, the same again. This is how you survive catastrophe in medieval England. One day at a time, one meal when you can get it. Work that never ends. And the knowledge that eventually things might improve, at least until the next disaster strikes. As you drift off, pressed between bodies for warmth, you think about the cycles of peasant life. Spring will come, bringing planting season and more food, but also new kinds of labour. Summer means crops to tend constantly. Autumn brings harvest and taxes. Winter means cold and scarcity. Each season has its challenges, its rhythms, its specific ways to kill you if you're not careful or lucky. But humans are adaptable. Your medieval ancestors, the ones whose blood runs in your veins, survived these conditions. They rebuilt after disasters. They worked fields until their hands bled, ate food that barely qualified as nutrition, lived in homes that modern humans would consider unfit for animals, and somehow they endured. In your almost sleep, you hear whispered conversations around you, plans for tomorrow. Who will search for more food? Who will care for the orphaned children? Who will begin rebuilding the church? The community organises itself as it has countless times before. Medieval village life wasn't just about individual survival, it was about collective resilience. No single person could make it alone. You needed your neighbours as much as they needed you. For all the hardship, there was a certain security in that interdependence that modern life rarely captures. The last thing you hear before sleep finally claims you is your father's whispered voice to your mother. We'll be all right. We always are. Against all odds, he might even be right. Days blur into weeks. Late February becomes early March. The work never stops. Labouring for the Lord by day, rebuilding your own lives by night. Somehow your village begins to take shape again. Though shape is a generous description for the hodgepodge of shelters rising from the ashes, your family's new home is nothing like the old one. It's smaller, crudder, built with green wood that warps and shrinks as it dries. The walls have gaps you stuff with moss and mud. The roof leaks when it rains, which it does constantly because, well, England. At least it's something your mother says, trying to sound positive as water drips onto her shoulder. The weather is changing though. Subtle shifts that only farmers notice, the quality of light, the smell of the air, the slightly later sunset. Spring approaches, bringing both relief and new challenges. Relief because winter's deadly cold will ease. Challenge because now begins the most critical period of the agricultural year, planting. Get it wrong and people starve come autumn. But first there's Lent. 40 days of religious fasting before Easter because medieval life wasn't hard enough already. The church mandates no meat, no dairy, no eggs. Basically, your already limited diet becomes even more restricted. Father Ethelred looks uncomfortable announcing this at Sunday Mass in the half-repaired church. Even he recognises the absurdity. People already starving being told to fast. Given our circumstances, he says carefully, certain allowances may be made for the youngest and oldest among us. This is his way of bending the rules without directly contradicting the church. Church is where you learn that the raid wasn't isolated. 3 other villages suffered similar fates. A petty war between lords that peasants pay for with their lives. Did our Lord win at least? Someone asks bitterly. The priest purses his lips. The conflict continues. Great. So it could happen again. After Mass, the village gathers for the weekly meeting. These have become essential for coordinating rebuilding efforts. The village reeve, a peasant elected to manage community affairs, stands before the crowd. Planting begins next week, he announces. We need to take inventory of seed. A grim silence follows. Most families lost their seed grain in the fires. Without seeds, there's nothing to plant. Without planting, there's no harvest. Without harvest, well, you can do the math. Edwin speaks up. The monastery at Glaston might help. They've aided villagers before. It's 3 days' walk. Someone points out. I'll go. Volunteers a man named Cedric. Others join him. A delegation will travel to the monastery to beg for seed grain. It's a long shot, but desperation breeds boldness. Talk turns to immediate concerns. Thomas's son, the boy with the cough, has gotten worse. Several others now show similar symptoms. Illness spreads fast when people are crammed together in inadequate shelter with poor nutrition. Your mother, who knows something about herbal remedies, offers to help. I found wild garlic near the stream, she says, and there's still some dried eero from last summer. The gathering breaks up as rain begins to fall again. Your family hurries to your leaky shelter, where your father immediately gets to work trying to improve the roof. The next morning brings something you haven't seen in months. Sunshine. Weak, watery English sunshine. But still, the psychological effect is immediate. People emerge from shelters with something close to hope on their faces. Your mother takes advantage of the weather to tackle the monumental task of laundry. In your modern life, you probably don't think much about doing laundry. In medieval England, it's practically an Olympic event. First, she builds a fire to heat water in your salvage cooking pot. While that's happening, she makes lye soap by filtering water through saved wood ashes. The resulting solution is caustic enough to burn skin, but effective at cutting through months of accumulated grime. Your sister helps, pounding the wet clothes with a wooden paddle. The work is exhausting. No washing machines, no dryers, not even running water. Everything done by hand using homemade soap that's basically one step away from being a chemical weapon. These might actually be clean, your sister says with wonder. Hanging sewed-in tunics on branches to dry or they'll dissolve completely, your mother replies with a rare smile. While they handle laundry, you and your father join other men working on a new communal project, a proper oven. Individual families can't afford separate ovens, so villages share one or two. Without it, bread must be cooked in the fire, yielding poor results. The oven is clay and stone built with techniques passed down through generations. It's back-breaking work hauling stones from the stream and clay from the riverbank. But the result will benefit everyone. Midday brings news. The first returning members of the delegation to the monastery. Their faces tell the story before words do. The journey was successful. The monks provided seed grain enough for essential crops. They're sending a cart, Cedric explains. Too much to carry back on foot. A cheer goes up from the gathered villagers. It's the first genuine celebration since the raid. This single act of charity might mean the difference between life and death for the entire community. The monastery's generosity isn't entirely selfless. Religious institutions and peasant communities exist in a symbiotic relationship. The monastery needs functioning villages as much as villages sometimes need the monastery's help. Still, in this moment, it feels like divine intervention. As the day continues, you notice your sister moving more slowly, her face flushed despite the cool air. "Are you well?" you ask her. "Just tired," she insists, but her voice sounds strange. By evening she's burning with fever, her breathing laboured. The cough that took Thomas's son has found your family. Your mother looks grim as she places a cool cloth on your sister's forehead. "We need to bring her fever down." This is the moment you truly understand medieval medicine, or rather the lack of it. No antibiotics, no hospitals, not even a proper understanding of what causes disease. Your sister's life hangs in the balance with only folk remedies and prayer standing between her and death. Your mother sends you to gather more wild garlic and to ask neighbours for any herbs they might have. One elderly woman provides dried fever fabu, another offers honey precious as gold in late winter. The night is long and frightening. Your sister alternates between shivering with chills and burning with fever. Your mother doesn't sleep, constantly adjusting remedies, spooning herbal teas and honey mixtures between your sister's cracked lips. Your father sits helplessly nearby. For all his strength in the fields, he can do nothing here except occasionally fetch water or stoke the fire. By morning, your sister seems marginally better. Her fever hasn't broken, but it hasn't risen either. Your mother looks exhausted but relieved. "Go to work," she tells you and your father. "I'll tend to her. The Lord's fields won't plough themselves after all." The recent disaster hasn't changed the fundamental rhythm of medieval life or the demands of feudal obligation. Today's task is preparing fields for planting, breaking up soil that's been now over winter. The work is done with wooden ploughs pulled by oxen if a village is fortunate enough to have them. Your village lost most livestock in the raid. So much of the work must be done by hand using matouks. Back-breaking alternative that's painfully slow. "My wife's sick too," says what as you work side by side. Same cough. You nod grimly. "My sister." No further words are needed. Everyone understands the threat. In close-packed villages with poor sanitation and weakened populations, disease spreads like fire. Medieval people don't understand germ theory, but they recognise patterns. Father Ethel is blessing houses tonight. What adds for what it's worth? Religion and medicine blur together in your world. Illness might be treated with herbs, but it's also addressed with prayers, blessings, and sometimes exorcisms. The line between natural and supernatural is thin, almost non-existent. Midday brings surprising news. The steward approaches the working men with an unusual announcement. The Lord requests 3 men to help with preparations for a judicial proceeding tomorrow. This catches everyone's attention. Courts are rare events, usually held a few times yearly for the entire manor. For one to be called now suggests something significant. "What manner of proceeding?" asks the reeve cautiously. The steward looks uncomfortable. "A man from Westfield is accused of stealing the Lord's grain during the confusion after the raids. Westfield is a neighbouring village that suffered similar attacks. The accused man's alleged crime is understandable if true. Starving people make desperate choices. Your father volunteers along with 2 others. The work will be less physically demanding than field preparation, and it comes with the promise of food at the manor house. That evening, you return to find your sister's condition unchanged, neither better nor worse. In medieval medicine, this is actually a victory. Your mother looks ready to collapse from exhaustion. Father Ethelred visits as promised, bringing a small vial of holy water to bless your shelter and its occupants. The ritual provides comfort, if not cure. He speaks quiet words to your mother, offering spiritual reassurance. After he leaves, your mother reveals what else the priest shared. News too sensitive for open discussion. The accused man from Westfield, she whispers. They say he'll face the ordeal. Your blood runs cold at these words. Trial by ordeal is exactly as terrible as it sounds. Unable to determine guilt through evidence or testimony alone, medieval courts sometimes turn to divine judgment, physical tests believed to reveal God's verdict. Which ordeal? Your father asks grimly. Hot iron. The ordeal of hot iron requires the accused to carry a red hot iron bar for a specified distance. Afterward, the hand is bandaged. When unwrapped days later, the state of the burn supposedly reveals guilt or innocence. Clean healing indicates innocence. Infection suggests guilt. It's barbaric, painful, and completely unreliable as a determinant of actual guilt, but it's how justice sometimes works in your world. Morning brings the arrival of the seed grain from the monastery, a cart laden with precious sacks of barley, rye, and peas. The village reeve oversees its division among families according to their land holdings and needs. Your father isn't present for this distribution, having gone to assist at the manor for the judicial proceeding. Your mother sends you in his place, trusting you to represent family interests. The division is tense but orderly. Sleep now. Let yourself sink deeper into that perfect relaxation. Your eyelids are heavy. So heavy it would take too much effort to open them now. Your limbs feel pleasantly weighted, impossible to move even if you wanted to, which you don't. You just want to drift all the way down into deep, restful sleep. That's it. Just let go completely. The day is done. The work is finished. Nothing more required of you now except to rest, to renew, to dream perhaps of different possibilities, different worlds. But for now, just sleep deep and peaceful, easy and calm. Sleep now. Sleep well, drifting deeper with each breath down and down into perfect, complete rest.